This is your life, this St. Paul's Cathedral, where, as the world knows, Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer were married just months ago. Now, the world also heard the voice of a young lady who was a special guest at that wedding. That's the lady from far-off New Zealand, whom I hope to be telling you about in a few moments when she arrives here for an appointment for a television interview about, of all things, weddings. The interview not with me. Now, helping me surprise her are some very special friends of hers who have worked with her in one capacity or another at the famous Royal Opera House. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. Only time to tell you now that our first surprise, here in his glorious uniform, is John from the Opera House itself, John Kilgar, who's head linkman and will in fact open the door of a car due to arrive there. Meanwhile, let all of us get out of sight if we would, because she's due any second, and then we'll give her our first big happy surprise.
Good evening, madam.
Did you tell us he's going to have a lot tonight?
Hi. Hi.
What's it like?
A little thing happened to me on the way in. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Curious.
It's not the interview you expected. They're all your friends from the Opera House. I had to me to say, special royal wedding guest, international opera star, Kiri Kanawa. This is your life. Oh, I'm not flattered by that
I said they're never going to do that to me. I really said, I watched you the other night. They're never going to do that one to me ever. I'll always know.
Oh, thank you. Well, we've got some lovely surprises for you, I promise you.
Where's my husband?
Well, I thought you'd never stop laughing.
I still haven't.
My thanks to your manager, Basil Horsfield, your singing teacher, Vera Ruska, and your pals from the Royal Opera House who are here by kind permission of its General Administrator, Sir John Tooley. And, of course, John Kilgar has started us off in such splendid style. Kiri Kanawa, this is your life, one that's taken you from New Zealand's Poverty Bay right into St. Paul's Cathedral and the royal wedding earlier this year. Kiri, you've sung opposite some of the world's greatest singers, but for the past 14 years, you've had just one special leading man. You appealed for him a few moments ago. You thought he was playing golf today, but he's here now. Your husband, Australian mining engineer, Des Park. Des, was it difficult trying to keep the secret from this lady?
Well, over the last couple of weeks or so, it hasn't been too difficult because we haven't seen a lot of each other. But today, that was a different matter.
I have to tell you, at 6:30 this morning when the alarm went
Well, I was
off.
going to say that too.
The alarm went off, he says, go back to sleep.
Because the reason why I had to leave at 6:30 was because I had this long-arranged golf day. And if I cancel it, she'd get suspicious.
It's the only way I wasn't
I
playing
had to
golf
go
at 6
out.
o'clock this morning.
And the number of cups of tea I've drunk is terrible today.
Well, now, Kiri, you were personally chosen by Prince Charles to sing at the royal wedding, watched in 74 different countries by 800 million people. Now, Sadly, your mother did not live to see that great day, but there was no one prouder than someone we've flown for you from his home in Natapay, New Zealand, 12,000 miles away. Your dad, Tom, to Kanawa. Tom, you and your late wife adopted Kiri when she was just 5 weeks old, and you must have been very proud of your daughter on the day of the royal wedding.
Well, very proud.
And of course, Mum was the first to encourage her to sing when she was a baby. Let's recall again that historic occasion at St. Paul's last July. Those unforgettable moments in your life as well, as you sang for the future King of England and his bride. Kiri, we have many happy surprises for you tonight, but let's begin with one that I know will give you special pleasure. A letter. This letter, headed Balmoral Castle, in which I have special permission to read to you. Dear Miss Kanawa, this is just to send my very best wishes to my favorite soprano on a special occasion, and to say how much one of her greatest fans admires her glorious voice and her acting ability. The two together combine to produce the truly great opera singers. With warmest best wishes and unceasing admiration, Charles. And His Royal Highness has one more thing to say about tonight's shows, you'll see. I hope this hasn't been too much of a shock for you.
It has.
Now, Kiri, yours is an unusual sounding name. I know it's Maori. What does it mean?
Well, some people say it means skin of a tree, not necessarily skin of a human being. And Kanawa was a chief, so they say. But the more famous I became in New Zealand, the higher he became in rank. But I do believe he was a chief because he has his own motto on the in our own tribe, doesn't he, Daddy? In the Manupoto tribe in Tikwiti.
Now, there's somebody, Kiri, a star with whom you've appeared on television many times, who has his own special reason to remember your name.
Yes, and I have my own special name for her, too.
Another famous singer and one of Britain's best-loved comedians, of course, the unmistakable tones of Sir Harry Secombe. So Harry, what's this about a special name for Kiri?
Well, I was doing a television series, and the producer said to me, "You've got a marvellous soprano for you this week from Covent Garden." Well, that's intimidating. You know, any soprano from Covent Garden can be intimidating, especially singing with me. So I said, "What's her name?" He said, "I can't pronounce it." I said, "That's marvellous." So we're sitting around in the rehearsal room trying to pronounce her name. And then came this lovely lady, and I went, "Whoa!" So I had to say to her, I said, "How do you pronounce your name?" And she said, "Kiri te Kanawa." I said, "That's nice." She said, "But you can call me Tin Knickers." So that I knew everything was going to be all right. So it was.
Thank you, Sir Harry Secombe. Well, Kiri, this is your life, and you were born in the North Island port town of Gisborne in the Poverty Bay area of New Zealand. You go to infant school. You are aged about 5. And your mother teaches you a few simple songs, but it's soon obvious that your voice is an exceptional one worth special training. So when you're 11, the family moved to the bigger town of Auckland, 222 Mitchell Street, so that you can be taught by an experienced teacher. You study under a remarkable lady, and only ill health prevents her from being here tonight. You've said she started your career, and through the years she's become a close friend. Well, now at the grand old age of 86, she greets you from St Mary's Convent, Auckland, Dame Sister Mary Leo.
Hello, Kiri. As I listened very recently to you singing at the royal wedding, my thoughts flew back to those early days when, as a little girl of about 14, your mother brought you to me and asked me to teach you to sing. Well, it wasn't altogether a hard task, because your voice, although it was very small at the time, had some potential there. And as it grew, and of course matured into what we hear today. Goodbye, my dear. There will always be a warm place in my heart for you. God bless and keep you.
Thank you, Dame Sister Mary Leo. Well, it's while you were studying with Sister Mary Leo at St Mary's College that you joined the school choir and take part in concerts with them. At one of these, when you and the other girls are getting ready, a soloist is on stage and you're supposed to be quiet. But suddenly, the piece is shattered by the sound of bells.
Bells? Someone set off a fire alarm.
Yes.
She was there that night, and we've flown her from Auckland, New Zealand, to be with you, your old pal of 17 years ago, fellow chorister Sally Sloman. Sally, I suppose it wasn't Kiri who set that fire alarm off.
I know it wasn't. No, I cannot tell a lie. One of the few practical jokes she didn't have anything to do with, I think.
Was she a very sedate convent girl?
She wasn't, actually. I can remember one concert she turned up with this magnificent, revealing red scarlet gown, one of the Mobile songs, and I can remember Sister saying, "You can't wear that in public, my dear." In those days it was very revealing. A very snazzy dresser, and she still is. It was marvellous. Marvellous, very happy.
Thank you, Sally Sloman. Well, once you've left school, Kiri, you take any singing job you can get that will give you professional experience, regularly appearing in clubs and on the radio and recording popular songs of the day.
Oh, this is my song.
Harry,
This is the song of serenade.
But nothing deters you from your real ambition to be an opera singer, and you enter all the main vocal events you can. In 1964, you win the Mobile Quest radio competition, and in 65 you go to Melbourne, Australia, where you win the coveted Sun area competition. With the prize money behind you, plus public support and a grant from the New Zealand Arts Council, you make the difficult decision to leave home to further your studies in Europe. You sail with your mother for England and enroll for a 4-year course at the London Opera Centre.
But after 3 years, I had to ask her to leave.
Former director of the London Opera Centre, conductor James Robertson. James, why 3 years instead of 4?
Well, it was clear from the start that here was a remarkable talent. And it flowered, as far as the opera centre is concerned, in the Carmelites, when she played the lead. And at the end of it, you will remember, she had to walk across the scaffolding to the guillotine. I conducting down there, I didn't dare look up, because it was terribly upsetting, the idea of this pretty head falling into the basket with a plop. She came, of course, for 4 years, that was the idea, but after 3, we agreed that enough was enough. She knew all we had to teach her, and so she was sent off to spread her wings, which she did with a vengeance.
Thank you, James Robertson. Indeed, Des, it's while Kiri's in London that you met for the first time.
That's absolutely right. Well, I'd recently arrived from Australia, was working outside London, and this friend phoned up and suggested that I might fill in on a blind date that he'd organised for the following weekend, which I happily agreed to do. And so I went up there and we had this blind date, I didn't see Kiri for a fortnight thereafter.
More.
Well, maybe a little more.
Diligent with his telephone calls, all men are.
But not much more. But then after that, we saw each other quite a lot for a fortnight. I went for a holiday to Italy. Kiri returned to New Zealand, and I phoned her from Italy. And for some reason, which I'm sure both of us will never understand, I hightailed it out to New Zealand on the first plane and we're married 6 days later. And that all happened in a period of about 6 weeks.
And that was the 3rd of August 1967 at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Auckland. And judging by those crowds, it's clear, Kiri, that you'd not been forgotten. Now, you and Des come back to London, and in 1970 you become a member of the Royal Opera Company. The following year, you auditioned for the part of the Countess in The Marriage of Figaro. And the result of that was to prove a turning point in your life.
I couldn't believe it, so I asked her to sing again.
Now, music director of the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, Sir Colin Davis. So, Sir Colin, you couldn't believe your ears?
No, but after the second time I had to, didn't I? And Kiri seemed just the girl that we were looking for. I looked up the notes on my audition card and it said, tall girl, big face, handsome, use. So we did. And of course, as everybody knows, Kiri was a huge success and she hasn't put back since. The nice thing is, though, that in spite of all her success, she's still a lovely girl.
Thank you, Sir Colin Davis. From then on, Kiri, you go from success to success and are in demand in the world's most important opera houses. There was one particular performance at the Paris Opera when you were taking part in a new production of Don Giovanni, and one of your co-singers suddenly finds he's working off the cuff.
Not so much the cuff, or the whole bloomin' sleeve.
He sang with you in that performance and many others, opera and television star Stuart Burrows. Stuart, what exactly happened in that performance?
Well, Eamon.
Too much.
Everything happens with Kiri, as you know. This particular night it was one of the early performances of a new production of Don Giovanni, and the costumes are very splendid, and it was in the scene with where Don Giovanni himself comes in, accusing Leporello as being the culprit, you see, of all the problems in the opera. And of course, I have to take a pistol from within. And I did this. "Non sperate, non..." And suddenly the sleeve came. I turned for support to my fellow colleagues. She was nowhere to be seen, Kiri. She had gone to the back of the stage, you see, like this, and was convulsed in laughter. Not only was she convulsed in laughter, but the audience began. And it was some time before we got the thing back on the stage. You never know what she has up her sleeve, baby.
I bet you don't. Thank you, Stuart Burrows. Kiri, quite clearly you're noted for your sense of humor, but when it comes to serious singing, you prove you're in the top league, as you did in another production of Don Giovanni, this time for the cinema, in your much-acclaimed role of Donna Elvira. Vera Rocha, Kiri's singing is as much a compliment to you as anyone, since you've been her singing teacher for more than 10 years. But more than that, you're godmother to one of her two little children.
Yes, Tony. I am her godmother, and I would say that she's such a marvelous mother. It is very difficult to choose whether she's a better singer or a better mother.
Oh, nice.
I think she's a marvelous mother to the beautiful children.
Well, Kiri, you're in great demand now, not only for opera, but for television. And at a rehearsal for one television show in London, the orchestra's ready to start. On stage, a famous television presenter and lover of great music introduces you to sing an aria.
Sing an aria? I thought she'd come to sweep the floor.
Of course, the famous voice of Richard Baker. Richard, she took you by surprise?
Well, she took everybody totally by surprise. The orchestra were all poised there to play the accompaniment for your aria. I was there to introduce it. It was rather a solemn aria. And then suddenly in came this figure wearing rollers and with a cigarette hanging out of the corner of her mouth. And the aria was called Rejoice Greatly, which is exactly what we did. We all fell about. It was the most extraordinary sight, Kiri.
Thank you, Richard Baker.
Thank you.
Kiri, you've appeared with some of the legendary names of grand opera, many of whom have become close pals. Now, although she cannot be here, one of them, who has the warmest of memories of times together with you and Des and her famous conductor husband, Richard Bonning, greets you now from her dressing room at the Opera House San Francisco, one of the world's most celebrated sopranos, Dame Joan Sutherland.
Hello, Kiri. I remember you had a fantastic success when you went on at the Met for an indisposed soprano at very short notice to sing Desdemona. I also remember attending the rehearsals and performances in Sydney when you sang Traviata for the very first time for the Australian Opera out there. And again, it was a fantastic success. You made a marvellous job of Violetta, because I know exactly the demands such a role makes on you, and carried it off splendidly, especially when the table collapsed under you in the third act. I don't know why it is we always end up laughing. As you can see, I'm all dressed up, ready to go on in the Merry Widow here in San Francisco. But Richard and I send fondest love, and I'm sure all your friends here at the San Francisco Opera. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Dame Joan Sutherland. And Kiri, if you keep looking at that screen, there's someone else who wants to talk to you now. Although en route to America, he took time off from his busy schedule. None other than that doyen of conductors, Sir Georg Solti.
My dear Kiri, I am virtually on the way to Chicago. But I don't want to miss the opportunity to tell you really a few things. First of all, I not only love you as a singer, but I admire you also as a human being. You have a marvelous sense of humor. May I recall one little accident? Paris Opera, singing Don Giovanni, Donna Elvira, I think. You've been the only Donna Elvira in the history of Don Giovanni who suddenly disappeared during the aria, dropped down the sets on you, and you went on singing further until the sets again went up. I thought it was wonderful. I love you, and all the best to you, my darling.
Thank you, Sir Georg Solti. Well, Kiri, 8 years ago you were awarded the OBE, and just this year that great honour of singing at the royal wedding. Now, it's a far cry from where your story began, in Poverty Bay, New Zealand. And when you go back there these days, Kiri, since your mother died, one of the first people you visit and stay with is someone who I know holds a special place in your heart and you in hers.
And Kiri, I will never forget the first day I saw you.
Kiri, for you, she's flown across the world from her home in Russell, New Zealand, Cura Beale. That day that you first had eyes on Kiri for the first time, she was only 3 years of age, but it's still, to this day, one of your fondest memories of her.
Yes, it is.
What do you remember of her?
This little girl of about 3, just by herself on the marae, and I thought she's lost. And I said, "Are you looking for your mother and father?" She said, "No, I'm all right, thank you." And these big eyes, and they've got bigger, she's got older.
A happy memory from your childhood, Kiri. And I hope tonight will be a happy memory for your children too, because, of course, they're here to complete your night. 5-year-old Tony and 2-year-old Tom. Kiri, Kanawa, this is your life.